Good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting for Tuesday, December 9th, 2014. Lorraine got a flat tire on the way here, so she's just getting in. I'll read the agenda for tonight. At 6:30, we're going to go into executive session to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining session or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. The police chief contract, fire chief contract, executive session minutes approval from October 7th, 2014, and October 21st, 2014. At 7 o'clock, we'll have citizens' input and topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting. 7:05, we'll have the selectmen's update. At 7:10, we'll meet with Chief O'Leary on the commercial parking lot inspections update. At 7:20, we'll still be with Chief O'Leary, and he'll be giving us a final report from the 2012 police investigation. At 8:05, we're going to be talking with representatives from Waxy O'Connor's related to a change of manager. At 8:15, Board of Selectmen will discuss the RFP for town council. And at 8:30, we'll have Bill Keegan give his weekly town manager update. With that, we're going to go into executive session. Can I have a motion, Ginny?
Yeah, I move that we go into executive session to discuss the police chief contract, the fire chief contract, executive session minutes approval for October 7th and 21st, and to come out of executive session, at the end of the executive session, to go into the regular meeting.
Second?
So roll call, Jim?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Good evening. Welcome back to the Board of Selectmen's meeting for Tuesday, December 9th. We're getting a little late start here. At 7 p.m., we're looking for citizens' input. Are there any citizens who'd like to come forward? I'm sorry.
Pledge allegiance.
Kristen, can we hold off 1 second? We just need to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay.
Sorry.
You want to lead us in it?
No.
Since you're
Can you lead us, please? Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Chris Long. I'm a long-standing resident of Foxborough. I'm a mom of 5, 2 of which are addicts, heroin addicts, graduated from high school. And I am now raising my oldest addict's 2 children. So you could say I'm a mother of 7. Tonight I was informed of another overdose in our town, 4 of which I know of in the last 10 days, give or take. I called the police department to ask if they carry something very, very simple. It's called Narcan. It reverses the opiate, and it brings somebody who is in an overdose back to life, usually instantaneously. I was informed that, no, our police do not carry Narcan, and that needs to change. We have a stadium, and we have a lot of people that are overdosing. In Taunton, last year, from January to this past November, there was 185 reported overdoses, and that's in Taunton. 4 in 10 days is a lot of overdoses for our population, and something needs to change. And lives could have been saved if the officers were trained to carry Narcan. I carry Narcan because I went to a Learn to Cope meeting and I became trained in it because I have 2 addict children who use heroin, and I take it everywhere I go. It's a very simple 15-minute training session, and there's really no excuse. Very shortly, people are going to be able to go to your local CVS's and request Narcan so that they too can keep it and have it to be able to reverse a heroin overdose. The heroin on the streets right now is extremely dangerous. It's cut with fentanyl. Fentanyl is an anesthesia. There's more fentanyl than heroin when you buy heroin. So that's what makes them nod off. And if it's more than what your body can take, if you are a active heroin addict like my daughter who weighs under 100 pounds, and you do it, you will nod off, and you can watch somebody go slowly into an overdose. Their breathing becomes very, very slow. Their eyes roll behind their head. It's something not pleasant to watch, but it can be changed, it can be reversed, and you can save a life by having Narcan. So I'm asking for a push. I know you're working on it, Chief, but it needs to happen yesterday. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So, Chief, if you can work with the town manager and Roger, and perhaps let us know in the near future what plans are in place for discussing the use of Narcan. It's definitely been proven. Okay, thank you. I'll just give a very brief Selectmen's update. The Board of Selectmen want to acknowledge the passing of Betty Moorshed. Betty was a longtime bus driver for the town, so we'd like to take a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Okay, Chief O'Leary, our next agenda item is for commercial parking lot inspections update. Would you like to give us an overview of the report, please?
As indicated by my report to the board, I was approached by the captain that works the stadium events, Paul Demore, if he could assist us in any way with the enforcement of our parking lot regulations. Over the last couple of years, the intensity of the events really hasn't allowed me to have staff particularly sent to the parking lots. And I know in the past, both Mr. Gaspara as well as Deputy Chief Bagley have been conducting inspections. But I thought it would be worthwhile to have the state police, where they're out on the highway adjacent to those lots, obtain a copy of the rules and regulations that we have in effect and delegate to him to conduct inspections. Over the time period, over 2 games, he had his staff go to most all the lots. There are some exceptions, and do rough car counts and make sure that the lots had the proper equipment, that they had the regulations, that there was somebody there on site that would be able to help anybody that had a problem, especially at the end of the night, because they have to maintain some staff member on duty. And as a result, on the 26th and November 2nd, those inspections were done. Of the 28 lots that were inspected, all had the safety equipment as we require and were properly signed. There were some lots that had overages beyond what they have for the number of licensed parking spots. I contacted the operators of each of those lots to inform them that they were over. I've had conversations with 5 of the 6 that you see in front of you to see if there was any type of rationale or reason, and advised all of them that I would be going out again to those particular lots to verify that they were staying in compliance with the number of spaces that they're allotted. In particular, I also spoke with Commissioner Gaspara today, and at the last game, the Detroit Lions, which was not one of those games that we actually had people going out to, he had actually gone out with Deputy Bagley, and although they didn't do car counts, they made sure that the roadways within the lots were not overparked so that fire equipment and ambulances could easily go through the lots. We have 4 lots that still need to be inspected, and I plan at the all-agency on Thursday to have Captain Demore again specifically go to those lots to verify that they're in compliance as well.
Is there a cost to the town for having the state police do the inspection?
None at all, because the officers are there on duty in any event.
Thank you.
Chief, is this some sort of fine for non-compliance?
Actually, the non-compliance would have to be such that the board would have to take action.
Okay. Is this habitual non-compliance?
It was just discovered because of the inspection, so I would not really think it would be a constant thing, and I'm hopeful, based on my conversations with the lot operators, that it would not be. But again, I'll have a better handle when I go out this coming weekend. That should have a large crowd, given the Miami game.
You, in your last sentence, you made mention that there's various retail operations taking place in the lots. Is that outside of compliance?
Well, no, because many of the lots that were identified also have some type of store or business operating on the site as well.
Mhm.
And it might be a case where the trooper doing the count would just assume that all the cars were parking, as opposed to having clients at, whether it's a Dunkin' Donuts or other types of retail operations.
Okay, so the total car count could be blended.
Correct.
Okay.
In those situations, is the requirement that the permitted parking be separated in some way from the regular, from the commercial parking, like for, say, going into Dunkin' Donuts back? So in other words, the permitted parking is over here, and then the regular commercial is over here. Is there any way to designate that, so you wouldn't
Actually,
have a
some of the
mix?
lots have designated it, that they have clear markings as to where their retail customers can go. But on the other hand, there are some lots that don't have that separation. And that's one of the issues that when I go and do my own inspections, we'll discuss.
I mean, can we make that a requirement?
Possibly for next year.
Yeah, so that the permitted number of spaces does not include those commercial spaces. You know, right on the license, the permitted number.
You know, that's something that could be done if you wanted to amend our parking, commercial parking licenses. The last one that I have, I believe the last work was done in 2011 or 12, and that was done in cooperation with the lot owners. We had them participate and take a look at all the regulations, and we sought input from them because they're the ones that are doing it.
And right now, there's no mechanism for fines in the present?
I don't believe, my understanding, there is not. They'd have to be brought before the board for a violation.
But is it noted when they get their permit, do they have, are there rules and regulations that go along with the permit?
Actually, the permit does include the updated rules and regulations, and every attendant is to have those rules and regulations with them in the parking lot, which was demonstrated to the officers that were doing the inspections.
But in the rules and regulations, does it say that you're subject to a fine if there's over parking? Is that anywhere in the rules and
No.
regulations? So really, there's no weight to saying that you could possibly be fined, because it doesn't say that you can possibly be fined. So there's no weight to it.
Right.
So then at what
Well-
point do you say, well, you have to come before the selectmen to be fined if there's no?
Well, not a fine necessarily, a suspension of the license.
Okay, is that in the regulations?
Well, we're the licensing board, so we have that option.
Right.
Well, I think also it should be noted in the regulations so that you can say to them, well, did you read the regulations? If you overpark, then you're subject to a suspension or you're subject to a fine. So maybe we should do an overhaul of the, regulations.
Well, that's what I'm suggesting to the
Yeah.
board, to take a look at the regulations and amend them so that there could be a penalty clause spelled out clearly.
To do that, Ed, would you work with the lot owners again, to just review the entire?
We could
Program.
certainly do that, both review the current regulations and discuss
Mhm,
the issue
mhm,
of having a penalty clause.
mhm.
We'll
Okay,
look for your suggestion, chief.
Okay.
right.
Okay, I make a suggestion to the board that, these are the 6 lots? that
Correct.
we have in the bottom? So 16 Washington, Stadium Golf, Foxborough Realty Trust, Foxborough Rotary, Pine Brook Office Park, and Hercules Realty Trust, that the selectmen author a letter to send to them, and then that letter appears before, at the time that we sign the next application, or set the permit for next year to remind us, because it's kind of going backwards if there's no fines and penalties, but at least put something in the file that there was a violation, it's on record, so we have a starting point for the 2015 year. Does that make sense?
Sounds fine.
Mhm.
Yeah, can you also add lot number 29 and lot number 208? Because in our original report, those were also listed as being 37 over on lot 29 and 25 over on lot
Turn
208.
the page.
And they're not
From the
on the
original.
contacted list.
Is it because that wasn't 10%?
Correct.
So they didn't exceed it by more than 10%, Ginny, that's why they're not on this list.
But that's,
What was the number again?
number, lot 29, it was 37 cars over. That 29 Washington Street, it's permitted for 224, and there were 37 over permit.
More than 10%.
Right, and I had a discussion with them as well about the delineation of the lot, because they have quite a bit of retail parking at that location as well. So I contacted that particular individual and went over his system again so that the cars that were there were outside of it. And also, they didn't count, or they did include a secondary lot that's owned by a different company behind their building that wasn't attributable to that particular lot.
So those cars were not permitted at all in the back?
No, the back lot is a different lot that wasn't inspected at all. It has to be inspected this time around,
Mhm.
specific to the area.
And lot 208? That was on 208 North Street? There were 25 over on that one. I mean, permitted for 450 and it was
208.
25 over. I know it's less than 10%, but
Right.
it was still over.
Right.
Yeah.
But he used a demarcation that from time to time, there could be overages.
Mhm.
And if it didn't hit what I thought was a reasonable number, or percentage of the total parking available,
Mhm.
I did not put them on the list.
Mm.
Any other questions for Chief? Thank you, Ed. The next item is the final report of the 2012 investigation. Jim, would you like to introduce this topic,
Sure.
please?
As many of you are aware, back in the 80s, William Sheehan, Phil Sheehan, who was an employee of the town, had molested many of the Foxborough boys in town. So it was brought to the attention of Foxborough, mostly recently by the superintendent, Deb Spinelli, who brought it directly to the police department. So that was in 2012?
2012.
12, yeah. So there was a history a little bit before that, and I'm sure that the chief's gonna talk about it. But when that came to light, the town took different steps. One of them was a warrant article that was sponsored by, that was supported by the town to form a committee. And that's running successfully, and many of the committee members are here tonight. And then that's kind of the right hand. The left hand was the investigation that started and kind of tailed off and was on hold a little bit. One of the reasons because Sheehan was not able to stand trial or not able to answer to it. So Chief can again talk about that. But what we asked, this board asked the chief to do by the end of this year, because when something goes on year after year, there's a lot of speculation and unanswered questions and rumors. So we asked the chief in very plain English and redact names that don't have to be spoken of the victims, to kind of put it in English and tell us what happened when you first was made aware of the issue back in the day, all the way up till today. So
Right.
it's a way for the town to wrap our arms around it from the perspective of the law enforcement as to what happened, who knew what, when, and how, and then publish it. And the hope is, if it answers all the questions, if not, maybe it'll bring up more questions. But it's a tool that we have to write the history as we see it right now and have it out in the public for people to see it and answer it and learn from it. So when we asked the chief to do it, that was a few months ago. I think he's here tonight to present from his perspective, from the law enforcement, the Sheehan matter, and put it into a public realm right now.
Correct.
Thank you.
Next, I have copies both for the record and for the members of the board.
Yeah, I don't, it's is it 3 or 4 pages? Is it
No, it's perhaps longer.
longer? Is it worth reading it into the record? Is it that long?
Well, at the very least, I can try and give a short synopsis and then a conclusion for the record. I'm sure that there may be, depending on what the board's willing to allow, there might be specific questions from members of your committee and/or, recognizing people that were victimized by Sheehan, if they'd like to speak.
Are there copies for anyone?
Actually, I only made 10 copies, thinking of the board.
Is Frank Mortimer still here? I mean, could this be published in the paper?
Yes, in fact,
That's
that's
for
why I
Frank?
held out a
Okay.
copy for the
Good.
Yeah, I do have
newspaper.
1 copy if somebody wants to. 1 extra copy, I should say.
I have an extra one here. They can take mine, I'll share.
We can share.
Yep. Anybody else?
Yeah, as long, I mean, rather than read it into the record, as long as
Right.
arrangements are made with Frank to have it published, that'll serve the same purpose.
Okay. This particular case actually started in January of 1998. We were still located in the bottom of Town Hall. Ordinarily, we had a civilian dispatcher that particular day, and a gentleman came in to speak to a police officer about a matter. And on duty that day was the detective sergeant, James Kozak. Jim had the person come in, conducted a brief interview, which was then later followed up on a couple of different occasions. He created a case file, started making up a report of what he had learned during the initial interview. He updated myself on the allegations about a former school employee that had worked in the community. And he also contacted the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, in particular their sexual assault unit that at that time was run by an investigator by the name of Patricia Negrelli. Ms. Negrelli had been there for years, even prior to my arriving as a police officer here in Foxborough in the late 70s. He conducted other interviews, obtained Sheehan's personnel folder from the school department, in particular Jay Fiscaldo, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. As a result, however, a case was sent for the district attorney's office for review, and we received a letter back from the district attorney's office stating that the statute of limitations for that particular crime had expired and no prosecution could be undertaken. Mr. Kozak, Detective Sergeant Kozak, again spoke with the victim and advised the district attorney, him of the district attorney's response, and mentioned that civil litigation may have been possible. In July of 2000, James Kozak left our employment and became chief of police in the town of Millis. As was mentioned, we had changes in personnel, or not mentioned, but not in the report. When Jim left, we did not have a detective sergeant in the office at that time, and instead we had two detectives, Brian Gallagher and Jean Bosquet. They were handling the caseload and receiving general supervision from Lieutenant Paul Conant. So they were handling the crimes that were taking place on a regular basis that needed follow-up. In 2012, I received a call from Superintendent Spinelli. She indicated that a member of her staff had made a disclosure about an incident, and in particular it involved a teacher when he was in an elementary school and continued from some period of time as he progressed to a different elementary school and then even to the Ahern School. She mentioned the name of that particular teacher, and I recalled it from the investigation that Jim Kozak had done, because it was such a significant case that I could recall the name, and I knew that Jim had done a fairly extensive report on it. During this time, Mrs. Spinelli was trying to also locate the personnel file of the teacher and had 3 different people looking for it. Again, unfortunately, unbeknownst to us at the station, Jim Kozak had the folder, but it wasn't included within the case folder that he had developed. In going on from there, I asked Mrs. Spinelli to contact the victim, to have that person call the Detective Bureau, and I went into the detective office and spoke to Detective Thomas Corain. I told him what had occurred in terms of the school involvement, and I also asked him to take a look at any reports that would be in the folders for the 1990s that Jim Kozak had handled about a sexual assault by a teacher. I also contacted myself, the executive assistant district attorney, to advise her of what had come forward and to make sure that we had information. At the same time, after interviewing the new victim, Officer Corain and I had a discussion about the case, and I advised him to also contact the district attorney's sexual assault unit so that we could get assistance both from a legal point of view in terms of building a strong case, as well as starting the process of getting some assistance from that office in the investigation, which is a typical protocol when we have a sexual assault case, utilizing the resources because of the complexity of many of these cases. There was a meeting that took place between the district attorney's office and members of the state police. Trooper Kathy Prince was the trooper that was assigned to the case. And Tom had also asked if he could have the assistance of Officer Tim O'Leary that had been doing dual duty as a detective and the youth crisis officer. As a result of that initial interview with the district attorney's office, there was a second letter. The second letter was written in 2001 and was addressed to Chief James Kozak at the Millis Police Department. There was no indication at all on that letter or any other letter that indicated anything had come to the Foxborough Police Department. The nature of that letter indicated that there was then a possibility that cases could be brought and would be outside the statute of limitation upon further review. That was the first time in August of 2012 that I had seen that letter that went to Kozak, who had been our detective sergeant, but was known to be the chief in Millis. The investigation continued. Additional victims were interviewed, and by the end of August, we had what was thought to be a case to approach the district attorney for a warrant. During that time period, I know that both Tom and Tim were very reluctant to contact Florida, where we knew that this person had allegedly moved, for fear that he might hear wind of it, of not knowing who investigators in Florida might be doing some follow-up for us. And we didn't want to actually give word to anyone until we had warrants in place. And actually on September 12th, both Detective O'Leary and Trooper Prince went down to Florida with an arrest warrant. 3 charges came about from incidents that occurred here in Norfolk County, and we discovered that one of the sexual assaults actually took place in Bristol County. Once we found out that the individual was not at his home when they arrived at the community, and found out from his son that the dad was actually in a secure facility due to a medical condition. The officers went to that facility. They observed him being fed by staff members. They talked to staff members as well as medical staff, and found that because of his medical condition, he appeared to be unaware of his surroundings. They had a conversation with the district attorney's office that afternoon, and the district attorney advised, because of what their observations were, and he was in a secure facility and would not necessarily be able to escape, not serve the warrant until we could gather more information about the true status of his condition. At a later time, the district attorney did hire a psychiatrist, subpoenaed the medical records, and have a psychiatrist review the medical records. Because the matter became more of a public record with the attempt to serve the warrant, more victims came forward. And we learned additional information about the wide range of incidents that had taken place in 3 different areas. For example, he was a Boy Scout leader. He became head of a troop of Boy Scouts here in our community as far back as 1965. And it was also learned that besides working at the Cocasset River Park as the swimming instructor and overall head of that activity, he had actually started working with young people in Foxborough in 1961. Upon graduating from college, he had worked over at the Lakeview Pond swimming facility. And some of the things that were learned is that we had victims in 10 different locations. The Center School, which is the site of the now Town Hall, the Lewis School, the Borough School, and the Ahern School. Assaults took place at Lakeview Pond, Cocasset River Park, and also an assault in England when the Scouts took a trip, as well as a campsite that's located outside of Foxborough where the scouts would be gathering for jamborees and other activities. Throughout the time period that the medical records were being done, we continued to do interviews. We followed up on suggestions, and the case was continuing. We actually, when Officer O'Leary and Trooper Prince were there, they actually did interview Mr. Sheehan's son. He allowed them to have access to the house where they took photographs to see if there were any items that would indicate somebody collecting mementos, which sometimes serial offenders do. But there was no visible evidence, and although the son did talk to the officers, he didn't indicate any knowledge of what the officers in particular were there for. It was at this point that we learned that Mr. Sheehan was actually fired from the school system he was teaching in Florida, and that his state teacher's license was suspended due to sexual activity that was reported to the school system by the Boy Scouts of America. There was no mention of Mr. Sheehan in any police agency in the community that he lived and worked, and that the only mention was several years later, or several years earlier than the visit, when he was found to be wandering around in the community when a missing person report was filed. And it was at that point they realized that he had a medical condition that would cause him to be first hospitalized and then put in a care facility and then a locked care facility because of that condition. One of the people that was interviewed by Detective O'Leary was Phil Littlefield. Phil was the assistant principal in the early 80s at the Ahern Middle School, where Sheehan had been a teacher. In particular, we were asking to see if there was some particular reason that Sheehan had been let go by the school system. There was an article in the 1981 spring edition written by Jack Arthurlet about how sad it was that this person that had done so much for the community as a teacher, a swim instructor, and a Boy Scout leader was leaving. In the article, Mr. Sheehan reported being very dejected by the fact that Massachusetts school teachers were not well paid, and he had decided to move to Florida. That information was verified by Mr. Littlefield, who could not recall any disciplinary action being taken against Sheehan, but that Sheehan had started talking about moving to Florida early that year prior to actually submitting his resignation. As I mentioned, Sheehan had a long history in our community. He graduated from Mansfield High School in 1957. He went on to college in Missouri, Drury College, which is located in Springfield. He is reported to have been a competitive swimmer, and as part of his community outreach and youth ministry, he taught young boys how to swim. He graduated from Drury with a degree in ministry studies, and later that month he was hired as a lifeguard at Lakeview Pond. He continued that post right through the fall of 1980, working for the Recreation Department. In 61 and 62, he attended the Newton Andover Theological Seminary, and in May of 63, he was hired by the school committee to be a teacher at the elementary level, in particular the 5th grade at the center school. When he was first hired, Sheehan lived in Mansfield. He moved to Foxborough at 81 Willow Street in 63, 64, and became the head of a troop of Boy Scouts in 1965. Sheehan was what we call a acquaintance molester. He used his position in the community to contact parents, to make the parents feel comfortable with him, and then would look for particular individuals within the student body, the use at the recreation center, the use involved in scouting, to groom and actually seduce, for lack of a better word, with attention and affection, privileges, gifts, until he could lower the victim's inhibitions. Often, again, he had contact with the parents, posing as somebody that was going to help their child and be friendly with them. In terms of ongoing investigations, although the district attorney made a ruling that because of his medical condition, he was not competent to stand trial, that the warrant was left open, so that if there was any recovery at all of his capacity, he could still be arrested and brought back for charges. And at this point, from time to time, we still have victims self-reporting. I was working an event at the stadium when a young man came up to me that grew up in Foxborough and wanted to tell me that he was one of Sheehan's victims. And I had him contact Detective O'Leary, and O'Leary took his information, which was very similar to the other young people that over a long period of time were molested by this individual. In both instances, the police department conducted a vigorous investigation of the allegations made by the victims concerning the sexual assault of children by William Sheehan. During the investigation of 2012, 23 victims were interviewed, 2 additional unrelated issues were uncovered, and another 11 interviews took place with people that may have had information about the suspect. During the course of the investigation, the detective division received additional support from the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office with the Mass State Police that were assigned to that office. And additionally, this agency reached out for assistance from the Federal Bureau of Investigation in reviewing the investigation. During the course of the case, interviewed victims shared concerns about other potential victims and gave names to staff members. The detective team and this officer made a decision that we would not contact them out of respect for their feelings and their privacy. There was extensive speculation that Sheehan had left the community as a result of disciplinary action or threat of criminal charges. Although numerous people were interviewed, there was no indication that anyone in the police department, school administration, scout leadership, or town government were aware of Sheehan's pervasive criminal assaults on children. Based on this factor, it's critically important that we continue to educate children and parents about awareness of sexual predators, their behaviors, and to educate them to take action by telling someone, be it a policeman, a community leader, or school administrator. Our community has already taken initial steps in protecting one of our most vulnerable groups, children, and as our community, we must rigorously continue that effort.
Thank you, Ed.
Some additional background information. Some questions have been raised about the letter. I actually did have 2 different conversations with Jim Kozak. The first one was when the case was opened up, and I asked him if he had any additional recollections of that particular case, the victim, the interviews he had done. He recalled that the case because of the statute of limitations, couldn't go forward. But he said he had done a thorough report on it, and in reviewing the report, he had. The second conversation was upon the discovery of the letter that was sent to his address as the chief in Millis, and he said, I didn't receive any letter like that, Ed, because I would have been over to see you and the detectives. I had worked with Jim, quite honestly, for over 20 years. We were patrolmen together for years on the midnight shift. He worked for me when I became sergeant. He worked for me when I was a chief, first as a patrolman, then a detective, and then a detective sergeant. He was a hardworking officer and very diligent in his methodology of doing investigations. During the entire time of the investigation, there were constant rumors and suggestions about Sheehan, his activities, and the potential he was forced to resign. The investigators tried to check a lot of those particular instances, but in no case have we found anyone that either has come forward with information about a particular individual that could be substantiated, nor has anything happened to verify some of the speculations that have gone along in the community. The other major player in this case, of course, was Tom Corain. Tom had been made a detective in the late 70s, early 80s. He handled, in particular, a major school case involving a teacher here in the high school that had embezzled funds from student accounts. He went back into patrol for a short while in the 1990s, and after Jim had left and I restaffed the Detective Bureau, I assigned him in there because of his investigative abilities, and he continued in that role until his retirement. So I'll throw it open to either members of the board or, allowing after that if you have anybody that wishes to speak from the community.
Thank you, Ed. Jim, do you want to start?
Yeah, obviously, for the last couple of years, I don't want to say work side by side, because that is not even close to it, but a lot of communication with Chief O'Leary. Knew enough to stay out of the investigation, because the last thing that the police need to have is pressure from Board of Selectmen on how to do their job. So, over the last 2 years, he and his detectives did their police work. From a selectman's perspective, when something like this happens, you want to blame somebody. And when I found out that Sheehan was not going to come back, it's like, who do you blame? And I think, starting with Mark Sullivan, who was a big advocate of this, tried to get this out in the public as much as we could, through the Globe, through Frank Warner at the Reporter, through cable access, through this board, giving out our phone numbers, our email addresses. And what I was looking for is similar to what the chief had said. If there was somebody out there, a parent, a teacher, even a disgruntled employee or something, somebody that would say, I saw something, or I was involved in, back in the day, people just did this. They pushed people away. I'm sorry for that now, but, 20, 30 years later, people might want to say something. And I have been contacted by a lot of victims, a lot of parents of victims, teachers, other law enforcement people in Foxborough. And I can honestly say, what I've been looking for, I just haven't heard. Nobody's come forward and said, I knew something. I think Sheehan did what he did very well. He kept it a secret, and please, one of the reasons that I wanted this report out and drafted was it's a document now. If someone reads this and say, look, you're wrong, I did come and nobody listened, or I gave the letter that the district attorney sent and I was asked not to forward it or something, this is a nice tool to do it. At the last meeting I said, you know, where Sheehan came from, you know, with the age of the internet, somebody over there could see it online and it can spread. I would like this to stay open a little bit before it's finalized, to give the public a chance to go to Chief O'Leary or Detective O'Leary or Corain or somebody that they feel comfortable with and dispute it or add to it or make it complete. Unfortunately, if that doesn't happen, and it is what it is, I think it leaves the victims a little bit in purgatory, because, you know, if I was a victim, I don't get my day in court, but at least, you know, from the town's perspective, I'm feeling we're doing or can do or have done as much as we can to get people to come forward. It's not making them feel any better, but we do have a great group of volunteers that we reached out to 7 different parts of the community, and they're very committed in training coaches, parents, teachers, anyone that wants to come and invest the time so this doesn't happen again. We live in a different time where it's very hard for it to happen again, because people don't look the other way, and they're very more comfortable saying stuff now that they did in the past. But I think Foxborough has come a long way. We can always do better. But I look forward to this report, and I was waiting for a gotcha or something to come out of it. But, you know, the time I've worked with Chief O'Leary, it's been nothing but professional. His staff, it's courteous, and there is a little bit of a fine line when people's names are involved and they just don't want, they were a victim and they don't want their names out there because they have children and grandparents and what have you. That's a fine line to respect, and I think you've done it very well. We could have, you know, brought in the cavalry on this and turned over everybody's houses to get answers. But if I had to do it again or to make suggestions, I don't know if we would have done anything differently. So I thank you for the professionalism, and I hope this is a good record. You know, it's nice for Foxborough to celebrate when we do something good, but when something happened in Foxborough that was bad, I think it's up to this board, where we have the control, to say it was bad, and this is our record, and this is what we stand behind, the good, bad, and the ugly, and this happens to be the bad and the ugly. And, you know, it's been said before that the town has never apologized to the victims, and you know, I've been thinking a lot about that, and, you know, had a teacher known, or a police officer known, or somebody that was under our employment known, and even though it was 30 years ago, didn't say something, I think we're in a position to apologize on behalf of the town. I certainly am sorry that it happened, and I'm sorry on behalf of Foxborough that it happened, and I think we can do our best to make sure it never happens again. And my heart goes out to the victims. Over the last couple of years, I've spent a lot of time with them. Mark Sullivan has, Linda Walsh, and I wish I could do more, and I wish the police could have done more. And I guess my final plea is that if there is somebody out there, lawsuits aside, or you know, let the chips fall where they may, but if there is somebody that has something to add to this report, please do so, because I think it's very important for us to get it right, and to get it right for the victims. So I'm hoping this goes on the, Frank, if you could put this on the reporter, link it, and so it's a little lengthy, but we owe it to the town to get this information out there and learn from it, so. That's what I have to add.
Thanks, Jim. No, actually, Jim's summary was fantastic, and I'm glad the reporter's gonna publish this in its entirety.
No, I think Jim said it all.
May I speak?
Yes, please.
I can only speak on behalf, and I'll go to the microphone. I can only speak on behalf of myself. My name is Danny Smith, 1998. I am the one who came forward. And from day one, I hope the town understands that, and I think the survivors that are in the over here, and the survivors who have spoken, our goal is prevention. Justice can't be given to us, and we've got to come to terms with that. This man will never pay for his sins. So it becomes something else. It becomes prevention, you know, so that your children, so that my grandchildren don't have to go through what I went through and what others went through. I think that this adds a level of closure, and I appreciate the heartfelt thank you, apology, or sympathy. And I do want to thank the town. I want to thank the town for doing this. I think it's a step in the right direction for me personally, and hopefully for the other survivors of this. I think it's a step forward. I also want to publicly thank Jim, and I want to shake your hand. I apologize if I cry. But I appreciate this being done. Because, and I know that as a committee and, you know, as parents, as people, that you do care about getting this right. And I think that that's exactly what the chief is trying to do, and hopefully that's what will come from this, is that there won't be other kids that are now 48 years old like I am, sitting here wondering how we could have made things differently 20 and 30 years ago. But thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just, sometimes I don't know when to stop talking, but having sat with a lot of the victims, in the back of my head, since the beginning, I said, where is this gonna go? Is this a money grab, or is this an anger, or what have you? But I can honestly say that all of the discussions that I've had is exactly what Dan had said. And Dan is not on the committee, but the people on the committee and the victims that come to the committee are all about making sure it doesn't happen again, and getting recognition that it is a problem, and it shouldn't be a problem for somebody else's parents or grandparents or families. And I guess to say, when Dan speaks, I think it is the voice of a lot of people that have come, that it's sincere, you know, how do we make it so it doesn't happen again? And I appreciate that, because it could have gone in a lot of different directions. If I was on the other side, I don't know what I would have done, but I tell you, it would have been a lot of anger. But you've kind of turned that anger into, let's do the right thing. And, you know, for a population of, what do we have, 76?
Roughly 7,000.
To bring it to a town warrant and have not one person vote against it. And have it the first in Massachusetts to do that. In this committee, and we've gone to the state, we've gone to different groups, and you know, if there's an example of something very, very bad turning into something very, very good, this is it. And I know the committee is set up to go year after year, and I don't see anybody shying away from that. So thank you, Dan, for sticking with it.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Jim, for your efforts. Thank you, Ed, and please thank all of your staff. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is Waxy O'Connor's. There's a change of manager.
He'll be right back.
You want to take a break, or?
Yeah, well, Frank, can we take a 5-minute recess, please? Thank you, Frank. Good evening, welcome back to the Selectmen's meeting. Our next agenda item is Waxy O'Connor's, a change of manager to Alfred Karnbach. Welcome. It's nice to see you again.
Attorney Splain, Frank Splain, representing Waxy's Mass LLC, doing business as Waxy O'Connor's. I know, as the board knows, this is a petition for a change of manager on the liquor license. Again, Waxy O'Connor's is located at 121 Main Street, Unit 210. I'm just going to ask Mr. Karnbach to give the board just an overview of his background in the restaurant industry.
I have been in the business for more than 30 years. I was with Chili's brand for
over 13 years. I left there as a managing partner and was with Carrabba's Italian Grill, all in Florida. And I was promoted to area director, ran 7 restaurants in Florida for Carrabba's Italian Grill. During that time with Carrabba's, I did carry the liquor license for the Merritt Island, Florida restaurant. I had that license for 13 years. During that time, never had any problems or issues. I moved to Connecticut with Bonefish Grill to open up restaurants in the New England market. South Windsor, Connecticut, I opened that restaurant with the liquor license in my name there. Did Bonefish Grill for about a little over a year, and then came on board Waxy O'Connor's about 7 months ago. I just opened the Plainville, Connecticut Waxy O'Connor's, and from there I was asked to come to Foxborough to take over the operation here.
No, we get into this conversation a little bit last night, and you're coming, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're coming to Foxborough to bring sort of experience and to try to bring stability to the Waxy O'Connor's operation. And we understand that this is a temporary assignment?
Yeah, I would say 6 to 12 months. My plan is not to be here for forever. I mean, I like the community and everything, but I'm taking over as Director of Operations for Waxy O'Connor's. I'll be running all of the Waxy O'Connor's in the New England market. So my job is to stabilize the restaurants, get them all running the right way, and I agree there's an opportunity in Foxborough. But I think that with my background, I'm the perfect fit to come in here and straighten it out and turn it more into a restaurant pub as opposed to a bar. I don't run bars. I don't think that's the way to go. So.
I guess the plan is within like 6 to 8 months or whatever the time frame is, you'll be introducing a new manager for the license.
Yes, we have interviewed some general manager candidates, but I'm not satisfied with any of them. We're trying to bring, anybody that's going to come in is going to have a little bit of a corporate background. That's kind of where Waxy O'Connor's is going, as far as being more of a respectable a restaurant company as opposed to kind of a, for better choice of words, mom and pop type operation. So that's kind of what we're looking for, and unless the right candidate comes in, I'll stay until we get the right person in there.
How long would you overlap with a new manager, a potential new manager?
Typically, 30 days. When they come in, I'll work with them for 30 days until I feel they're comfortable with the environment. And then I'll, even after I'm gone, I'll still be in the restaurant probably once a week, every 10 days. Because I'm also going into the other restaurants.
Jim?
Yeah, just a couple. Is it Cambaugh?
Karnbach,
Karnbach. Sorry,
no problem.
Karnbach. Your experience in Florida and Connecticut. Now you come into Massachusetts. The liquor rules in Massachusetts are complicating to me. Looking through it, and even they define a glass of 6 ounces of wine under the Mass General Law, under the regulations. And plus, we have 37 different additional regulations. Can you, from your experience in Connecticut and Florida versus Massachusetts, are you familiar with the Massachusetts regulations and the local regulations? Have you taken the time?
Massachusetts regulations are pretty similar to Connecticut. They're definitely different from Florida. But I'm very familiar with, responsible vending and, blood alcohol content and age limit, et cetera. I am tip certified in the state of Massachusetts. I have gone through that certification.
Okay. And I don't know if you can answer this question, but what's been on my mind, having sat through the last manager application a year ago, is a similar thing. It's a new management. We're going to not be the bar. We're going to be better food and better service and change our ways. moving into this business that you're not familiar with and managing it, have you taken the time to find out what you're replacing or why you're replacing it or what you're getting into? So we have some
Absolutely.
insight.
I've actually spent quite a bit of time in the Foxborough location, and I'm the one who terminated the general manager that was there.
Okay.
I agree with you, that it needed to be run like a restaurant, not a saloon, and I do know what the opportunities are in that location. Absolutely, I know who the players are, the people that I think, I know that Waxy O'Connor's has a history of having a problem. In the past, I can tell you, it's not the culture of the Waxy O'Connor's company. We have 5 pubs in New England. Not one of them have ever had a liquor violation, except Foxborough, and they've had 2. So I don't think it's a culture of the company. I think it's the mismanagement or management per se that was there, and those players are no longer with the company. That was one of my first moves coming in, is to change the culture in that particular building. So the culture's already changed. I can assure you that.
And my last question, reading back through there was a violation by the ABCC, separate from us, in reading their findings. An interesting point they were making was, it's in an area where there's not a lot of public transportation, and public transportation, taxis are kind of spotty. So at the end of the day, you are a bar at, late at night, and when the patrons leave, over-serving aside, not asking for ID aside, because those are the past violations, but there's been several violations where people just get in the car and drive away. How do you address that in an area where you don't have public transportation?
In the past, I've even offered to drive people home myself. We'll do what we can. We'll call a cab for the people ourselves and pay for it. I have no problem if it's the person's abusive and going, I'll call the police. They're right across the street. We don't want anybody getting hurt. We don't want to serve anybody excessively. Could that happen? Yeah. I mean, but you do what you can to stop it. I'll do everything I can, with the exception of the physical altercation, to try to stop people. I'll convince them, but I have been known to drive people home myself, or to get employees with me to drive their cars, so they have cars at home with them. We'll convince them that they don't want to drive. But I have no problem calling the police as well if somebody won't listen to me and they're going to get in their car. And I think with the proximity of the police department, it should be no problem getting them on site pretty quick.
Thank you.
John?
No, I already asked my questions, yeah.
How do you think you're gonna get the staff to buy in to your program? Is it just starting over? Is it ongoing training? 'Cause
Ongoing training for sure, but the staff at that restaurant is actually pretty good. They're good people. They just need somebody that's going to lead them in the right direction. But I am a no-nonsense businessman, and I have children too that I don't want driving drunk. And I have no problem replacing an employee if they're not going to buy into where we want to go with this. We've already lost people because they know that this isn't going to be a saloon and this is going to be a restaurant. But I'm usually good at the beginning of a shift. We do, I don't want to sound like the last person talking about their little rallies at the beginning of a shift, but I do talk to the people constantly, and I think that my plan is to increase the manager presence on the floor in that building, so that if we're walking around and we see somebody that we don't think we're comfortable with at any time, I'll demand to see identification of that person, and if someone can't come up with the ID, that employee's terminated immediately. But a manager presence increased on the floor, I think, is important, and talking to the staff constantly. I always have bartender meetings once a month as well, where we talk about other issues, but one other issue is also not serving minors, not serving anybody.
Yeah, that the enforcement of the point of sale is critical.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Mr. Kahnbach, you're an employee of Waxy O'Connor's, the corporate Waxy O'Connor's?
Yes, ma'am.
And it sounds like you're the troubleshooter? Is that what they call it? You come in when there's a problem, you're the man to
Yeah, I
come in
clean
to
up the
fix
mess.
it? You, okay. So would this mean that you would be at the Foxborough Waxy O'Connor's for the 6, 8 months, whatever, and that's the only place you're gonna be?
Well, I still have a home in Connecticut, and I also I'm moving to Pawtucket, Rhode Island. So I will be going back occasionally to Connecticut. My son is there. But yeah, that'll be my primary location 5 days a week.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was getting at.
Yes,
In other words, you're
yeah.
not gonna be in Foxborough and up in Lexington or Woburn or,
No.
so your function, your
My
primary.
function is Foxborough, 5 days a week.
Right, so
I
you.
need to get a couple of days off of work.
Oh, no, no, I perfectly, I perfectly, that was what my question was last night about your residence, because I noticed it was Connecticut. And you said last night that you would be going to Pawtucket, assuming you'd be renting in Pawtucket,
Yes,
okay. That was my main concern. So you will be the manager of the Foxborough
Yes.
Waxy O'Connor's?
Mhm.
And, okay, that was my main question.
well, I will be there until I have a suitable replacement.
Yeah, And I know when they bring someone in, when corporate brings someone in to clean up the problems, usually the person they bring in is pretty good, and they do a good job of cleaning up, and I really, really hope
I'll take that as a
that this,
compliment, thank you.
that this works out,
No,
truly.
as I said, I agree with you, and when I came on board Waxy O'Connor's, and spoke with the owners, they asked me to take on more responsibilities, and I insisted that I wouldn't unless they listened to what I had to say about not running saloons. If they wanted to continue to run a saloon, I wasn't interested. So the ownership has agreed, and that was part of the deal with me coming on board and coming to Foxborough, was they needed to let me do what I need to do. So I totally agree with what you guys are saying, that it's not responsible vending if you're just gonna run a bar. And we are increasing the food mix. We did bring in another chef. We changed the menu. We're focusing a little bit more on food, and we're gonna start doing some more outside activities in the community to try to make sure people understand we are a restaurant as well. We're not just a pub.
Can I just follow up on that? Because I'm sitting here and it just struck me. It may be because I did go back and look at the cable access. Verbatim, that's exactly what was said a year ago. New food, new management, new way of doing things. So between that story and this story, what went wrong? Why didn't it
wasn't
work
here
last
then.
time?
I wasn't here, sir.
So what would give us the confidence that a year from now, we're not going to be saying, I saw it with Frank, I saw it with, now it's 2 years? I have if it wasn't so identical to the exact same thing that happened a year ago, where superhero comes in and fixes everything, and now superhero gets fired and a new superhero comes in, I need some assurances that, you know.
I can only tell you my track record is there, and I wasn't here a year ago.
Has the owner and the manager above you changed anything from other than you? Is it?
I could tell you that they are stepping out of the operation a lot more than before, and that was part of the deal. Was I would come in and help with the operation contingent that they back off and let me run the operation. I wasn't here a year ago, but I can tell you that from what I know of the players from a year ago, they needed to go, and you know what players were left remaining when I came on board, I took care of that when I got on board. But I'm not those people from a year ago.
Yeah. When Alfred talks about the people having to leave, he's talking broad-based. When we were here a year ago with TJ, I can't remember his last name, he was brought in to improve the food, and in my opinion, he did. And that was his real focus.
Okay.
My understanding, some of his weaknesses was more on the monetary part of it, making sure that, the food that was delivered was the food that got out onto people's plates, and that, they were there to make a profit. And that, my understanding, that was the big issue with him. Also, it was a little lax with keeping a consistency with regard to service. All the waiters and waitresses and bartenders were not giving the same service to all the individuals. And that was a real issue. So it's just not alcohol-related per se as to why TJ, it's also his overall performance in that position.
Was that Mr. Lathrop? Is that TJ Lathrop? Was that his name? Because he was the last manager was Lathrop. Lathrop?
The last one that we applied for, I
Right.
can't remember.
Is that the man you were
It
referring
was
to right now?
Thomas something TJ that were here a year ago, yeah.
No,
Is he there anymore?
No,
I think
He
the person
begins
a year
with
ago
G.
was Joe.
no, Joe was before him.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so that man,
And Joe was still here with us, while TJ was also here.
okay, so TJ's not there anymore.
No.
So, Mr. Carnbach, I think one of the things you said, I'm hoping may make a difference in a big way, is having more presence on the floor, especially during the peak fun. And, having that relationship with the local taxi services and, knowing that the police department is right there, I think somehow if there's a way to orchestrate all of that so that it does set a tone that there is control, better control.
That's, I know you don't know me, but that's my reputation, is I take care of business. I will take care, and I want to make sure that the people are safe, and I want to have a safe and healthy environment for the staff and for the guests.
I mean, that's our obvious number one concern, public safety.
Mhm.
We have, unfortunately, a lot of OUIs happening in our town, and, it's just a concern that we have across the board. So, appreciate that you will take that extra effort to bring some new controls into place. I wish you good luck.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I was gonna make a suggestion, again, just because we've been through this before, and I have no doubt that he's sincere, that he thinks he can do it. I don't know if he can do it under the ownership right now. I would make a suggestion that we approve the new manager, because right now there is no manager, correct? There's no
On the
manager
liquor license.
No liquor
license, that's right. He's
under
left.
that. For 6 months, and have this gentleman come back to us after 6 months to give us an update of how the operation's going, and what problems that he's encountered or insurmountable. Because we did this and then we kind of walked away, and rightfully so, it's not our license. But I think having this happen again and having the issue go away, I'd rather recheck it in 6 months. And if he says, if he can do what he says he can do, I think it's fine and we continue it.
Are you guys still submitting quarterly reports? Or is,
No.
no, okay,
Did you
Kevin
ever,
Pecos indicated we didn't have to do it anymore.
okay.
so you never submitted quarterly reports according to the settlement agreement that you had signed, that everybody had signed? You
No.
would never submit?
Kevin Pecos told me on a number of occasions. So I would talk to him when each of the dates came up, and when we talked, and I said, because I want to know if he wanted me to come in front of you, because we never originally did, and if he wanted the quarterly reports, and he indicated to me each time no. And then when Bob Cutler became acting, I talked to him one time about it, and he indicated to me that we didn't have to. You know, I explained to him the history with Kevin, that he and I would meet, and I went over things with him, and he said, that's fine.
According to the settlement, were those reports supposed to be ongoing for the in perpetuity, or was
It was
there
at
a,
the
was there a
discretion of
deadline?
the town manager. That's how it's written in the settlement agreement, if my memory serves me correct. And Mr. Pecos told me that we didn't have to continue to do it, but he would bring it to my attention if he wanted to see some reports.
Under the new town manager, is that something we could resume, or once Mr. Pecos stopped it, did that end the requirement?
If the town manager asks us to do some reports, I'd feel comfortable doing it. But again, you know, I'd like to have it on an ongoing basis, and then if things are working out, to eventually stop it. And if they're not, we continue to do it.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of this board, I'm actually supportive of Jim's suggestion. Actually, I'd actually go one step further and say, and actually think that the person should come back in 3 months. Because given the nature of what's gone on recently, I think that given the fact that you're not familiar with the operation, but you will see a lot of things happen within 3 months, you'll be able to report back to the board on the progress of that, so that it won't, because it'll be easy to forget what's happened in, say, a 6-month period. I think 3 months is probably more appropriate, given the circumstances.
Have you been at the operation now for some time?
Yeah. I've been, I worked there for 2 weeks to really get to know the staff and get to know the operation. And then I'm in there at least once a week, if not twice a week right now.
But you're not the day-to-day manager today?
No,
When will you start being the day-to-day manager?
Tuesday.
Next Tuesday?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You
let's
move
go,
to Pawtucket?
let's go 3 months.
Okay.
And then the board can decide if they want to go longer than that after this, but I think, given the circumstances, I think it's appropriate, every 3 months.
If I
Sure.
could make a recommendation, I'm just a little cautious about conditioning his approval, with the ABC approving it or not approving it because of the conditions. We'd be happy to come back within 3 months, and 3 months after that, we'll volunteer that. I don't know, Jim, if you were conditioning his approval for a 6-month period and then reviewing it.
I feel strongly about it, and again, it's not the manager that I have less confidence with, it's the ownership. If we make the condition, I'm sorry, you.
Yeah, I was going to suggest to you that you already have an agreement that says every quarter, at the recommendation of the manager, town manager, that the person come back for report, so that'll effectively still be in place right now, is that you already have an agreement that says that.
So we
So-
could reinitiate
Just
the
reinitiate
quarterly
that
reports.
process and.
Well, probably what I
come back.
recommend is, technically, Kevin indicated to me we didn't have to do it anymore. So I think possibly, for the meeting next week, it could be part of that discussion and put into there, and we'll voluntarily do it. You know, the one thing I would request is that at some point, if things are going well, the town manager can say, you don't have to do it any longer.
Yeah, the problem I have with that, Frank, is we're not required by the former town manager to do the quarterly reports. And Waxy O'Connor's is before the selectmen again, because they flunked the sting. You know?
Well, if I can just speak to that point, first of all, the Board of Selectmen signs the license. So with respect to this piece of it, I think doing the quarterly reports is a good thing. I mean, it's good for both parties. And I would not stop that process until the board said to me that you're satisfied. Because I don't think that's appropriate for me to say that. That's just my approach.
So Frank, what's the concern about conditioning or having
Well,
a,
if you approve him for a 6-month period, I'm afraid the ABCC will say, no, you either approve the person or you don't. You don't approve somebody for 6 months and then they're off. the liquor license. That's my only
Yeah,
concern, you hear what I'm saying?
yeah,
So then what we'd have to do is, I imagine, reapply in 6 months?
well, I've got the concern of messing up the ABC system, and I've got the concern of the 3 violations that I've experienced since I've been here, plus the 4th that the ABCC has experienced. So if I balance the 2, I would rather have the ABCC get upset about it or have the extra paperwork in 6 months. That's not as concerning to me as letting this go informally for another 6 months or a year. So I'd rather err on caution of conditioning it and having it kicked back versus not conditioning it and have another violation. And again, not out of, within your control, but the ownership, they're not here, they're out of state, and they only show up when there's an issue. And gives me a little more teeth that they will show up in 6 months, or somebody will come back because they have to, and we're not chasing them. So, I hear what you're saying, but it's not a concern to me that there's a glitch with the ABCC.
I just, am thinking that having these quarterly reports where we will have ongoing interaction with Waxy's very closely, to me, we should be able to see from those reports, you know, if they are to our satisfaction. I'm just not sure what it accomplishes by putting a condition or making it only for 6 months. This is the job that he's here to do, and it's either going to work or it's not. And I don't see how putting a time frame on it changes that, because the stings will continue, you know,
But if,
and we'll have the feedback. So if it's not working, we have the option to have a hearing as to why it's not working, correct?
Jim, I think what you're trying to do is you're trying to editorialize on the ownership of Waxy's, when in fact it's shifted to an editorial on this fellow who we barely know.
And I 100% agree, other than I sat here a year ago, and we put the conditions
No, I
that
was here too.
they would come back, quarterly, and we didn't get it. And if it's Kevin Pecos's fault, or it's the owner's fault, or it's the attorney's fault, nobody knows right now. But we went down that route, and it did not work. I don't want to go down that route with the hindsight that it didn't work the last time, and we're going to do the exact same thing.
Well, no, that's what I think Bill is saying, that he's not going to let that happen.
And neither were we last year, but we did.
No, and it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, you're mixing up the approval for the town, for the manager. The violations.
This is what my concern is. We had a legal document that says that Waxy's has to do A, B, C, and D. Signed by the owner, signed by the selectmen, and then it went in the trash. Why it went in the trash, I don't know. But I'm not gonna do that. I would rather deny this application tonight and deal with the ramifications if not.
I think that argument belongs next week when we deal with the penalty phase of the sting.
I don't want to hang my hat on something that may or may not happen. We have a manager and an application in front of us that is identical to what was promised last time with the manager, that things were going to change, and they didn't.
Do you think
So-
Waxy's needs new management? Here he is. This is our best hope right here.
If it was this guy and I was assured of it, I'd say, yeah. I'm not convinced it's the manager. Honestly, I don't,
No,
because
you-
the manager is only as good as the authority that he's giving. And I'm not convinced that, I don't know why the other manager was fired. I don't know what happened. It could have been the ownership that got rid of him because the profit wasn't there. Who knows? This is the only thing that I can think of that's in my control right now, to say, we like you, we think you'll do a good job, but come back to us in 6 months and prove us wrong.
I have no problem. I can come back every 90 days if you want.
All right, so my
I-
recommendation is to condition
I'm
the
very
approval.
comfortable that, I understand where you're coming from. And I'm sincere.
Yep.
And I have no problem coming back and reporting to you every 90 days.
Yeah, Jim, I agree with the premise. I don't agree with conditioning the approval. Frank has been in the community forever. I mean, I can take him at his word that he will come back and he will submit the reports.
It's not, you know, again, maybe it's, I'll send the tape around so everyone can see. We all sat here and we said last time, this won't you know, members of the board, members of the public said, this is the fix, it won't happen again, we guarantee it. And Frank was up there with it, so, you know, I'm flabbergasted that we had to do it again after the sincerity that everybody, Frank included, and members of the board included, that this would never happen again, and it did. And I don't know whose fault it was. All we have right now is the facts of finding that we had last week, and we have to go through that process. So we're approving a new manager on something that's in limbo right now.
Can
So-
I make a suggestion here, since we're trying to get to your point?
Sure.
Is that you condition it tonight every 6 months, but that you can amend that by your action next week if you go to, say, every 90 days. So you're still guaranteed, you're concerned, you want to make sure that you have some assurance that this gets evaluated every periodic time frames.
I think Jim is saying that he doesn't want to issue the license for longer than a period of 6 months. That's different.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm
You're saying the
saying.
license or
Yes,
the?
the license.
No, not the license is not
Yeah,
up for
license
discussion
not a
tonight.
discussion, it's the manager.
It's the manager.
So you
And
wanna-
and the reason I said 6 months is because it takes a while for things to change. In 3 months, I don't think it's a good litmus test. I think 6 months, the bugs will get worked out, and if there are issues, you know, maybe they'll show up.
How would you recognize positive change?
That there's no more violations,
Mm.
that there's no more violations, and
Those
there's
are
no more
metrics.
violations, period,
Those are
you know?
metric- those are
And I don't live down for, I go in there, I've seen, you know, other people in there. If things are going bad, it's not gonna be hidden very long. It's a small town, and there's a lot of eyes on this. So, and I believe, I'm not trying to kick you and make it as hard as I can, but having gone through this exact same thing, I'm not gonna do it again. And that's the way I feel, so.
You know, I also reviewed the tape from the 2013 meeting, and it was pretty similar to last night. It was almost verbatim. It was almost like Groundhog Day. I mean, it was the same as last night. The same things were said, and I understand Jim's concern. In 2013, promises were made, you know, stuff was going to be done, the settlement was going to be done and all that, and here we are. Same things were said last night as in 2013. And so I can understand Jim's concern, and I hope you understand this board's concern. You know, how many times do we have to hear the same tape over and over again? You've got a tough job. If we approve you as the manager, you have a very tough job, because Waxy's there's a lot going wrong in Waxy's
I know.
that has to be fixed. And you're walking into it. I mean, you got your baptism by fire last night when you heard it. And they're valid concerns for the Board of Selectmen. Like I said, our names are on that license just as well as the managers. We have a concern, you know, and a lot of people in the town of Foxborough have a concern also. We welcomed Waxy's in as, you know, as someplace to go, the neighborhood pub. This would be great. And it wasn't so great for a very long time. So now, hopefully it'll, you know, we're trying to make it so that it is someplace that we can be proud of, you can be proud of, you know, and everybody can go and have good food and have a nice evening and go home safe. That's what we want.
I agree with you, ma'am. I can only say I was not here a year ago. I wasn't here. I'm here now, though. And I'm a man of my word. I'm sincere. I'm here to fix the situation, and I've identified what the opportunities are, and I know how to fix it.
Yeah, I have no problem making this conditional. But the problem comes, you already said you're gonna be here 6, 8 months, and they're gonna be right back with another manager. Do we condition that one as well? So we're gonna have a conditional, licensee, and then in 6 months, we're gonna be doing the same
Yeah,
thing.
so I would say in 6 months, if it doesn't get better, then the answer is no. If it gets better, then
Do
probably
another
yes.
6-month
Yeah.
conditional.
Or, and if things are stellar, maybe the issue goes away. I don't
Yeah.
know.
But by your own definition, Jim,
Hmm.
things are gonna get better if there's no violations. And they'll stay the same if there are. So you'll know by your definition, because there'll be no violations.
Correct.
So that'll be an easy thing to gauge. And if we have another violation, I probably won't be with them in front of you because of a lot of issues.
Yeah.
So by your own definition, if things are getting better, you're gonna know it. And if things are getting worse, you're gonna know it.
But if 3 months from now, there's an issue.
We're gonna be in
Sick-
front of you.
No, you'll be in front of us 6 months from now, and we can say, what happened 3 months ago? And it might not be an issue, but how did that happen? And we have that dialogue, rather than disappearing for an eternal time.
Well, if we have an issue, if we have a violation, we'll be in front of you quicker than 3 months.
We'll see, I guess. I'm not trying to be adversarial, but you almost said the same thing last time you were here. It's not gonna happen again. I won't be here if it's gonna happen again, you know, everyone's given their word. And people fell short. And the owner is blaming the bartender, and I heard that story last night. We got rid of the bartender. So be it.
Well, the blame is shared. The employee has some of the blame,
Yeah.
but the ownership and management absolutely has some of the blame, and we said that last
Yeah.
night. Now, the employee was fired because that's pretty much a requirement, that you fire an employee who, you know, serves an underage individual. And that comes from this board, to be honest with you. You know, when I've been involved in this, was the employee fired? That's the first question you hear from the town. So of course that's gonna happen. Ownership absolutely takes responsibility for it. They realize that, and I think this individual sitting beside me is indication of that, because they started looking for a new manager and went through the process twice and decided, you know, they didn't find someone they felt was gonna be good enough to bring in, and they brought Alfred here up from Connecticut, as Jenny said, to really troubleshoot it, to get, and some of the issues that Alfred talks about isn't all just liquor related when he's talking about it here. It's also financial, it's also how it's run as a restaurant, for profit purposes. We all know it's there for a profit, but the service of alcohol is one of the issues, and because of the violation that occurred. Now, I will say that from what it was before I got involved and what it's gotten since, it has improved. Has it improved as much as it should have been? No. And I think they will admit it. I think each of you will admit it. But it has improved. The food improved. The overall environment there has improved. The overall age has gone up, because way back in the day, it was a very, very young crowd. So it has improved. But I think, you know, they did recognize that it hasn't improved enough. And we'll all admit that.
And we can go in circles, Frank. The food, the profit, all that stuff. A minor went in there and nobody asked for the ID, period. So it's gonna take a lot to change my mind, because this is exactly what was said a year ago. New food, new manager, new everything, and it didn't work. So all I'm saying is, I'll meet you halfway. We'll say I'll approve it. My motion's gonna be to approve it for 6 months, come back, and then if everything's fine, then we move forward. If there's extra paperwork or issues, you know, agitation from the ABCC, so be it. But again, I really don't care about the ABCC right now and the extra paperwork, because of what we've been through.
I just want to make it clear, a year ago, we were not here. We were here changing the manager, because we wanted to bring in somebody that
Correct,
we
correct.
thought
So it
could,
was-
so we weren't
It was
bringing
the
that
last,
person up.
I'm referencing the last violation in the last
2
meeting
years
with the
ago.
owners, correct.
And you keep overlapping the two.
Correct, my
You
mistake.
know, this is a different issue. They're both important issues.
Yep.
You know, but it wasn't, it was 2 years ago
Yeah.
we got to that.
And maybe it's because there's been so many violations in my mind, I get confused, and that's not a good place to be in either right now. I don't have that issue with the other establishments. So my point is, there's confusion for a reason, I guess. I lose track. There's been a lot of issues. So,
But Waxy's does need a manager, because right now you do not have a manager of record. So that's what we need to do is get a manager, and if, I don't know how, I don't know how we can stipulate. Are you worried about it going to the ABCC with 6 months? Because that's like a red flag to the ABCC, that
No,
that maybe the town doesn't have confidence enough in the selection of the manager of record?
I'm concerned that they're gonna say you either approve them or you don't approve them. You don't approve somebody for 6 months. But if Jim wants to, you know, file it that way, and if it gets, you know, sent back saying you have to either approve or disapprove the person, then we'll just go through the process again.
okay.
You know, I'm fine with that. That was my concern, so that you were made aware of that.
But Jim, would you consider that we approve Mr. Alfred, can I call you Alfred? As the manager, to get a manager, and then the town of Foxborough will ask you to come back
Sure.
before us. Would that be enough for you?
It would have been, other than we've tried it before and it didn't work. Sorry. We had a signature, a contract, an agreement, it went through the court. We paid our attorneys to negotiate it, and it didn't work, because they never came back. I don't know if it's our former town manager, or our board, or the ownership, but it didn't happen.
Jim,
But-
that's
but
the
again-
violation, though. That's
Huh?
not, that's the violation, though. That's not the manager.
But the violation said the quarterly reports, not only submit them to the board, come in and sit in front of the board and discuss it. None of that happened. So all I'm saying is, fool me once, you know,
I believe the settlement said we were supposed to come back once.
Once.
and when
And
did
then
you-
after that, we were supposed to file quarterly reports with the town manager. We
Well,
weren't
and I
supposed to come
understand.
back in front of you.
So
No,
how
no,
did that
because you keep
meeting
saying we
go?
were supposed to be coming back all these times.
No, the quarterly
We were
reports,
supposed to come back once, and the board decided not to put us on agendas, and instead file the letter that I filed with you, that you saw last night.
Yep.
After that, it was supposed to be quarterly written reports with Kevin Pecos. And as I've indicated, I met with Mr. Pecos on a
oh,
number
no,
of times.
but at the end of the day, the system didn't work. That's all I'm saying. Whether it's your fault, Pecos's fault, our fault, my fault as a chairman, I don't know. But I don't want to go down that road again. So this is a way to ensure that we've got a new manager because it's needed. He's very qualified, but put it on a tight leash, and maybe that 6 months makes everyone do an extra stellar job, and then come back. If the ABC doesn't like it, we'll find out soon enough, and, you know, so we'll put it on our agenda when they let us know that it's not sufficient.
I think we should make the appointment, have the reports come back. The violation is what is gonna bring them back in front of us. That's what's gonna be the indication that it's not working. So I think we just need to move forward.
Yeah,
I understand the concern, Jim, that you have about the violation aspect of it, but that's different in my mind from, we're talking about a change in the manager with the effort to improve the overall operation to the benefit of the business and the town. I think we need to make that appointment, and as part of our discussion at the next meeting, where we're talking about the penalty phase of the violation, include in that quarterly reports to us, face to face.
No, I disagree, so you can entertain a motion and we'll go from there.
Anybody else want to comment before we make a motion?
What exactly would be in the quarterly reports? Just, we served, 3,000 meals, we had, or we had no police calls, we had, what exactly would you be reporting, if you had reported, What was it gonna be?
Could I speak on that?
Mm-hmm, please.
I don't think that would work through police reports. I think that education to the staff is the most important thing, making sure that they're having meetings with the staff. I could document the meetings and bring the documentation and the meeting notes with me. That's what's gonna do it. You're gonna need to have a management presence, meeting with the staff, a list of who the people are at the meeting, what the dates are, when they are, what you discussed. I'll be more than happy to bring that to you. I think that's the way to fix this. I want it fixed just as much as you do.
And you know what? That's what, we had 9 violations. That's what every one of them said to us.
I was never here before, ma'am.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that I'll come back
You're-
once a month if you like.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, you're in a tough situation. We're all in a tough situation.
I've been in these tough
Yeah.
situations before.
Yeah.
I'm just, I don't disagree with what you're saying, Jim. I have no problem coming up as far as what would be in the notes or whatever reports. I think that documentation that you're actually educating the staff and meeting with the staff regularly is what will do it.
We're looking for evidence that the culture is changing in a positive
Exactly.
way.
I agree with you.
And just, records of training, I don't really think capture that.
I don't think there were any records of training
Might even
before.
be, customer surveys and, could be things beyond training.
Mhm.
We're looking for systemic changes and that you could show evidence of those changes and that they are actually working to create a better culture. So we'll leave that up to you as how you structure it.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the new manager of record as submitted by Spillane and Spillane for a period of 6 months. And within that 6 months, have the manager come back to update us, and if there's no violations, then it turns into a formal, full approval.
Second?
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'm gonna vote against this. I actually don't think that that this appointment needs to be conditioned.
I'm also going to vote against it because I agree. I don't think it should be conditioned like that.
I think it's a separate issue with the penalty phase that we're gonna deal with
Right.
next week. That's when this should be addressed. To put that condition on this manager, 6 months, you may have found a replacement within that time or longer. I don't think that's the tool that's necessary for positive change. I think that'll come next week.
Any other comments?
How would you even put it on the application, that it was conditional?
That's a town form, right? Isn't it?
Oh, this is a ABCC form.
Then I would write sign it as a Board of Selectmen, and handwrite on it, approval for 6 months, and put a specific date on it.
Yeah, there's a specific Form 43, I believe that's the cover form that is sent in by the selectmen. And if memory serves me correct, there's a block on the bottom.
Yeah.
But I think you could probably put something in there. Again, I'm not sure it'll fly, but there would be a mechanism.
So there is a mechanism that there is a form that already exists so that it's,
There's a
you know,
Form 43, am I
Right,
getting
I
it
believe
right?
that's correct.
That the selectmen have to sign, or the town manager signs, that sends in the petition to the ABCC that says it was approved on this date by such and such. And I think on that form, there would be an area, or you could just put an attachment indicating the conditions. Of course, I'm talking against myself here, but there is a cover form from the town to the
Okay.
ABCC.
okay, if the ABCC, seeing that, decides, oh, what's this, we won't approve it, would they call you, would they call the town?
It would remand it back to the town.
Town,
for further
okay,
action.
and then, but then, would it just be like, okay, come before, you present it as an agenda item, and then we decide, okay, that won't fly, but we'll do away with that, but we'll still approve the manager? Would that be without incurring more costs for filing and stuff like that? Are there costs for filing?
I don't know if I've ever
I
heard
wouldn't-
that.
yeah.
Heard that before.
Yeah.
So, but normally, if the ABCC has a problem with an application or a decision, they will remand it back to the town for further consideration. And they usually include recommendations as to what considerations as to what the concerns were. They'll describe specifically what those concerns would be. I can't determine whether or not they'll remand it back or not, but I just know that that's typically the process.
And I don't know either. It's just a concern that I have, because typically you just either approve the person or you don't, and you send it up to them for their review of the individual.
When it goes to the ABCC, it's not, they get it like on a Monday, and it's not approved on a Tuesday and sent back to the town on a Wednesday. So Alfred could still assume
Oh, he's,
the managerial function.
oh, yeah.
Could do that, okay.
And I guess just
Oh,
under
okay.
discussion, since it was brought up, you can look at it as we're penalizing a new manager, but I don't think this is a manager issue. I think this is an ownership issue. And that's the way I'm viewing this. It's not a management fault that we're gonna have here. It's gonna be an ownership fault for not giving the support and making it work.
My point was, that's next week. That's when we handle the ownership.
So we can hold this off till next week, but I don't wanna make this contingent on something that may or may not happen on a separate, totally separate issue.
No, I consider this to be a totally separate issue, so.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Can you just make a note that the reason you opposed it was because of the 6 months, not, not opposing Mr. Conrad?
Yeah, if you
But
want
just,
to.
just for the record, because I
Right.
think that's
Right, for the
important.
record, I consider these two processes totally separate. And I think we'll deal with where Jim wants to go next week. And this is simply because I think Waxy needs a competent manager and needs it very soon. And I'd like to see this gentleman take the position. So I'm not against this manager. I am against the condition on his appointment.
Right, and Debbie, for the record, as I mentioned in the discussion, I am in favor of the appointment of Alfred as the new manager, and again, felt this was a separate issue from the liquor license violation for
think that-
consideration.
Madam Chair, just to interject here, because I think the language on the bottom of the Form 43 is gonna be important here, so I think we wanna note that the board is in support of the candidate, but that the appointment has conditioned based upon an evaluation of the establishment, continued evaluation of the establishment. Is that more accurate?
So you're trying to disassociate the infraction from this manager.
Right.
That's where I was going all along.
Yeah, because it's nothing that he has done.
Right.
In this case. But I understand Jim's point, that he feels compelled to condition it because of the concerns that have happened in the past. And I understand that next week you can do the same, but.
Yeah, like I said, I think next week's
But
the
he
time and
wants,
place
he
for
feels
it, and
strongly
tonight
about
is not.
doing it, so
So,
it's prerogative.
we'll continue to disagree.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Next item on our agenda is a discussion with the board regarding the RFP for town council. So,
Am I the only one that brought them all?
Follow directions.
so we all received the proposals from all the different firms that applied. And, I think tonight what we want to do is talk about the process that we're going to go through in order to come up with the finalists who we will then bring in for interview. So,
Well, Bill gave out a template, and there were some categories on how to weight certain items, whether or not they were board certified, whether or not they had appeared in front of certain appellate courts. I changed my format, and I built my own spreadsheet where I went through all the proposals, and they're not in the same format. Sometimes you have to hunt and peck for the information that you're looking for, and try to build a spreadsheet so that I could easily compare certain categories. And it was interesting because one proposal came in, they didn't even, they just said the price is gonna be competitive, but there is no price in it. So it's good to actually go through them and make sure that everything that was asked of them has indeed been supplied. So I've done that. I don't know if others have done that, but I spent a lot of time this past weekend, almost falling asleep reading these, but it was good. But the thing is, I have narrowed my choices down to 3. I don't know if anyone has had the time to go through and do the same. I'm assuming that's where we want to go, is narrow it down to 3. And then-
Well, that's your choice. You can interview 4, you can interview 5, you can interview 2.
I've been doing a similar thing. I set up a grid just to lay it out because it, the information is tucked in different places throughout these reports. So I just wanted to lay out things like what is included in, if they mentioned a retainer option, what's included in that, what's not included, what their hourly rate is, what they charge for travel copy, who their town council for. And I have separate notes in terms of the type of litigation that they have been involved with, just, for experience. So that's how I'm looking at it. So far, I've got 2 top ones, but I haven't completed my review of all of them yet.
John had mentioned it the other night, what the tool that he was using. And I was wondering, could that be made available to the rest of us? Because you have more experience in hiring.
Well, the thing is, in this, it's an Excel spreadsheet, and it has the firm, and it has certain categories across the top.
Right.
All of what's in there is a statement of fact. You'll find them in their proposals. For me to distribute that, I'm gonna have to take out the red column, which is my opinion of what I've read. But I can scrub that, and I can, if it's okay, I could send that around to be used as a template.
I mean, could you at least send it to me? I mean, I don't know whether
The
everybody
thing
wants
is,
it.
there's no
but
opinion in it. I could scrub the opinion.
I don't want your opinion.
Right.
Yeah,
Just-
I
just
just
the
want,
format, just the format.
Just the format and all of the,
Blank with the information. No
But if you
information.
send it to me, then I'll circulate to all the board
yeah,
members.
but it is, basically what I've taken is this, hard cold facts out of the proposals and put them into a spreadsheet.
right,
Just so you can compare and contrast a little bit easier.
right, yeah, just.
I'll send it to you tomorrow.
I did something
Yeah, that's fine.
similar.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's what we did the last round, at least you know the costs and the
Right.
experience.
I'll
So if
send
it-
mine over also, and you
Yep.
can merge them somehow.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other thoughts about the evaluation
In the
process, or-
RFP, Bill, you had said, and your summary, you don't have a lot of experience, you had it 14 years ago.
Yeah, it was a long time
Yeah,
ago.
but in the RFP, you kind of gave credibility to the fact that Foxborough is served by a lot of volunteers, and you'd be reaching out to department heads or different people in the community. Were you looking to review all these 8 and come back to us with a recommendation after checking references and all that stuff from your perspective?
Well, I think it'd be easier for me to have the board read the documents, come up with a recommendation, and then in the final 3, or I'll do evaluations of all 3 of those.
Okay.
And then give you, perspective on that.
So this matrix that we're gonna combine
Yeah.
from the one that you did and the ones that we have, is 3 a good number that you guys are comfortable with? We'll do whatever the matrix comes out with, and we'll pick the top 3.
Yeah, I think each of us should rank
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
3,
Or
and
or
then,
3.
And then come back to a meeting, tell me what those 3 are, and, find out what the final numbers are. And then we'll do some further checking on those, and then I'll come back with a report on each of those.
Yeah, I think it's best if you're gonna check references and, narrow it down first, otherwise you're
Yeah.
wasting effort on folks you're not gonna talk to.
And then have them in for an interview.
Is that timeline for interviews still January?
Well, we talked about January. That's probably a good timeframe. You could probably push it to the 1st of February, but if we can get it done, I think you want to try, because you want to leave some lead time. The idea was to try and push it towards March 1st.
If,
or,
if,
Yeah,
If we
that's
could-
actually a good time.
if we could do the interviews, the second meeting,
Please, make it the second
I'm
meeting in January.
yeah.
Because I'm not around much in early January.
Actually, it would be the discussion of
narrowing the field.
narrowing the field, the second meeting in January, and then maybe we could have, well, how much time would you need after that to?
How long?
Not long.
Oh.
The list of references between the 2 of us, we've worked with a lot of
Yeah,
the people
but-
on the reference lists. We could.
Okay.
Many of those firms I've worked
Yeah.
with in the past, and so it's very best.
I'm wondering if we should have a separate meeting that last Tuesday in January, just for this purpose, for those interviews only. What does the board think?
Yeah, I think you want to do one meeting just for interviews.
So,
Because it'll be three separate firms, you know.
so our, I think our first meeting is the 6th of January, so it would be the 20th would be when we would discuss, we'd come forward with our choices, and then
And
look
then
at the 27th to have,
Yeah, they have the actual interviews.
yeah.
In the meantime, what I'll do is I'll provide you a report between the day you give me the three, and I'll give it to you, I'll give it to you all, and then you'll have that prior to your interviews.
Okay.
And something that if we can, I don't know what the answer to this is, but last time that we went through a similar process to this for a town manager, we're live on local cable. So whoever's having the first interview is at the disadvantage, because whoever's having the second and third could be in their car watching it on the phone, which I think is an incredible disadvantage to the people up front. Maybe during that one interview, these can't be executive session, but we have a 1-hour delay on cable access somehow. So people don't get the advantage over another candidate and hear the questions, because the questions that we'll be asking will probably be redundant from candidate to candidate. So I don't expect an answer tonight, but if we can think about it.
Put them in
How
a
to do
penalty
that.
box or something?
You know,
The
I
cone
don't
of
know.
cone of
I don't know.
silence.
I don't know, but it's, I'm sure we can figure it out, but.
Well, the way you did it with interviews for the town manager was that you all brought us in, and we sat in the room, so the queue room, and waited in a separate classroom.
Self-monitor.
I don't, is that what happened? 'Cause
Yeah.
I thought there was hours between the first and the last, and I think the last
No, they
person.
were
It just
45
seemed
minute
like a-
interviews, they were
Yeah.
pretty quick. They
Yeah,
were,
well, actually, I was by myself, and then the one came in right after me,
Yeah.
and then so, but, you know, I waited in one of the classrooms while the one candidate was being interviewed and came down afterwards, and then there was one came in after me. So there was a little bit of a delay in between.
Okay.
all of
If it's not an issue, it's not an issue. I thought it was an issue.
Also, could you possibly help us with a script of questions?
Sure.
Definitely.
Can I just
Go
ask
ahead,
something? The last time around, we did an RFP for town council. I got calls from from people on different other boards and commission, in town, who for one reason or another had used one of the firms as like a special counsel or something like that. And I got their opinion of how they liked the work. So I'm wondering, could you send a memo to the boards, commissions, anybody in town, to ask them, you know, give them the names of the 8 people, the 8 firms, and ask them if they could, like, you know, maybe comment on their experiences with them, if they have had experiences.
Do you want to do that before you narrow the field or after the narrow?
I think we should narrow the field.
You narrow the field first?
Because otherwise.
Well, I'd just like to know, because it's very helpful to find out, because what is said before us in an interview, what is sent on paper could be, the experience of a board could be totally different.
but Jenny, we can go through the interview process. Bill and Mary Beth can do the references, and then you can do your own diligence. You can do it that way if you want.
Right, but I mean, like, if you know, if the other boards send you information, just that we can,
Oh, that
that
could
we
be
know.
disseminated, for
Yeah.
sure.
Right,
You
well,
want-
that's what I want.
Otherwise, you could end up with a very different finalist group based on a board's opinion rather than this group's opinion.
Well, it'd be nice to know, rather than getting I mean, I got a phone call. I don't know who else got the phone calls, but I got a phone
I
call.
only got one phone call.
Huh?
You get any phone calls?
I get a lot of phone calls.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I
I
mean,
get a lot of phone calls when this started. Different topic.
you know, so, I mean, I just, because I know a lot of the other entities in town have gone out and used special counsel for a variety of reasons.
So, am I just understanding this correctly, that you want to take the list of all 8 candidates and circulate that, or do you want just the final 3?
Well,
Maybe the final
Do
3,
you want
and
just the
maybe
final
those
3?
boards could send their information to.
In other words, we'll ask, these are the 3 final candidates that the board's going to interview for town
Mhm.
council. Have you had any experience with for these boards, positive or negative, please,
Right.
please submit
Yeah,
your
we're just
comments.
looking for
That's
input.
right.
And
That's
to be as
fine.
part of our
And that way
reference
we'll get
process.
them,
That's
Yeah.
fine.
whoever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other thoughts? Okay. Why don't we go to town manager update?
Just a couple quick items. The finance director has advised me that just they provided me an update on the senior tax work-off program, that credits have been applied to the fiscal 2015 third and fourth quarter tax bills totaling $16,523. And this reflects a gross amount earned of $19,464, the difference being the required federal withholdings. A total of 21 seniors will be receiving an average of $787 in credit on their tax bills. This is higher than the $750 maximum credit applied in the previous years. However, participation in the program is off by 40% this year. We'd like seniors to know that the program is still available to them and it is working for those participating in the program. At the annual town meeting this year, voters agreed to raise the maximum credit from $750 to $1,000. This now allows the required federal withholdings to not reduce the amount seniors had been used to receiving and actually result in a slight increase to the credit. We want to just thank Lisa Sinkus, the treasurer collector, Vicki Lowe, director of council on aging, and Hannah Simmons, who was the director of assessing, and their staffs for successfully administering the program under the new federally required program, which is obviously added some level of complexity to the way it's being administered. So just want to say thanks for that. The net abatement, again, has been applied to real estate bills was $16,523 for these quarters. And then also, today we had a very good discussion about the central maintenance program in developing that for the budget, upcoming budget process. Everybody right now is in the budget process of developing their fiscal 2016 spending plans. And we had a pretty good round-table discussion with all the various facilities that would be affected by a central maintenance program and the various key players in that process. So that is going to be a reality as part of the process in terms of the budget process. And today was another step in the right direction towards achieving that. So we expect this will be a phased program, where we'll be looking at general maintenance improvements over the course of the first year, looking at custodial staffing issues over the next year, and certainly capital improvements will be mixed into that as well over the course of the next few years. So, and that's typically how it's done. It's phased in over a period of a couple of years. Because there's a lot to do in the first year. So, long and short is that we're very pleased to see that program progressing as it did. We've been working a lot on collective bargaining. Mary Beth and I have been spending a lot of time at the table, working with the dispatch group. We're meeting with the firefighters tomorrow. Met with the steelworkers, which is the new town hall group. We met with them today for a couple hours. We have other meetings scheduled for them in January, working towards trying to achieve an agreement.
And I met with DPW last week.
And DPW last week, so we're past that and trying to get these things worked out. And then I also want to point out that we have had a lot of applicants for the replacement of Senator Herman's position, the executive assistant in the office. In fact, we're going to be talking about that again tomorrow. We've had up to this point over 300 applicants for that job.
300?
300 applicants. So pretty significant. So we are got a lot of work cut out for us in that process. So we're moving along. Everything's moving along pretty well at this point. It's been pretty hectic and pretty busy. A lot of meetings scheduled. Not to lose any momentum, of course, is the town hall project, which we're moving forward on that front as well. So we got a lot going on. So.
Anything going on the trash front?
Yes, and actually on that point, we'd hoped that we'd be starting in January 1st with a transition from Dooley which would take over the Russell contract. Unfortunately, they weren't able to reach agreement on how that was going to work out. So I think it's going to play out until June 30th. But in the meantime, it's a good time for us to plan for that transition. And I will tell you too that I also want to report that we actually were successful in receiving a technical in-kind assistance grant from the DEP on trash-related programs and how we can actually help formulate this program, work with the prospective contractor and working those things out. And I've had a good conversation with Mr. Dooley about that. He's willing to participate in that discussion as well, so we are moving forward on that front as well.
Okay, but it's status quo until June.
It looks like that's gonna be the case at this point, okay?
Bill, I wanted to ask for our next meeting, could we have, start discussion on the warrant articles for the
Yes.
annual town meeting?
And thank you for raising that. I think we've got a number of issues that we've talked about up to now. We've obviously been pretty bogged down in terms of the liquor issues, but there are a number of items that you have talked about that you want to try and see if get something on for discussion in the annual town meeting warrant. We want to get some discussion and maybe focus groups, focus subgroups of board members that can help us formulate some of those warrant articles.
Okay. And then also, maybe we could get an update on the personal wage bylaw group.
That group
Yes.
has been meeting, they're meeting again tomorrow
We're
night.
meeting tomorrow night, and we talked about parsing out pieces of the personnel bylaw based on areas of interest. We have a list of recommended changes that another committee had done last year. We're looking at those. So we talked about sort of dividing and conquering different pieces of the personnel bylaw, whether they be different policies or compensation strategy, those kind of things. And I think tomorrow night is sort of how we're gonna start approaching that. But, you know, we definitely appreciate participation from this board on a committee to look at the personnel
Okay.
bylaw changes.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so next action items. Okay, got a long list.
Okay, the first one is, this is a donation to the Council on Aging from the National Council on Aging. It's to defray costs of running the Aging Mastery Program, which is designed to improve the lives of seniors. So I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the acceptance of a $500 donation to the Council on Aging by the National Council on Aging for the Aging Mastery Program.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. The next one is a donation to the Council on Aging. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the acceptance of a $25 donation by Mildred Green in memory of Alice Murphy, with our thanks and appreciation to Mrs. Green.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
The third is also for the Council on Aging. They received a grant from the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. It's to be used for programs to benefit seniors. This was applied for by Vicki Lowe. And I actually thought she was going to be here to talk about it, but I guess she's not. But anyway, it's for coordinating driver and transportation, coordinated salary, aging mastery program, conference, and anyway, the grant is substantial. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to accept a formula allocation grant for $25,824 from the Executive Office of Elderly Affairs to the Foxborough Council on Aging, and thank Vicki Lowe for her work on this grant application.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's great.
The next one is for recreation. It's a donation for family passes for the winter skate at Patriot Place. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the acceptance of 17 family passes from winter skate at Patriot Place, and thank Patriot Place for the donation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. The next is also for the Recreation Department. It's a donation for a future scholarship. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to accept a donation of $95 to be used for a future recreation scholarship. It's from the Friends of Foxborough Recreation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. The next one is pursuant to Article 24 from last spring, adopting Mass General Laws, Chapter 48. This allows the planning board to complete defaulted subdivisions with the permission of the selectmen. And this is from Sharon Wasson, representing the planning board. She's requesting the approval to pay Aggregate Industries $10,351.03 for paving Carlton Lane and $8,547.50 for paving Clarendon Way with monies received from subdivision sureties. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the payments to Aggregate Industries for paving Carlton Lane and Clarendon Lane.
Second.
Way.
Consolidated
All those in
all.
favor?
Yeah, it's all-
Aye.
It's a functionary action.
Okay, the next is one-day wine and malt beverages license application. This is for the Orpheum Theater. This is for Friday, December 26th and Saturday, December 27th.
Is
This
this
is
the
the
same,
Three Stooges Film
Three
Festival.
Stooges Film Festival.
this is the same schedule that,
Is that January 1st or December 31st?
No, it's December 26th and December 27th. Put that on your calendar.
Oh,
is this the
absolutely.
same schedule they had last year? This is no change, right?
And it's from 1 to 8,
Oh, it's 12/31 too.
yeah. Would they like to serve beer and wine?
I always do.
Okay, I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the one-day beer and wine licenses for the Orpheum Theater for Friday, December 26th, and Saturday, December 27th, 2014. Yuck, yuck, yuck.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next one is also
late.
from the, yes, very late. The next one is from the Orpheum Theater also. They would like to have a beer and wine license for Wednesday, December 31st, which is New Year's Eve, 8 to 12:30 in the morning. It's for a stand-up comedy show. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the one-day wine and beer license for the Orpheum Theater for Wednesday, December 31st, 2014.
And that should say AM, by the way.
Right.
I'll second that.
Yeah, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, the next is First and Goal is formally requesting a one-day all-alcoholic liquor license for its Patriots tailgate party for the 2014 Patriots layoffs at 59 Washington Street. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the 3 one-day all-alcohol licenses on either, because the dates are to be announced, on either January 3rd or January 4th, 2015, January 10th or January 11th, 2015, and January 18th, 2015. The playoff dates and times to be determined.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
This is for the Foxborough Historical Commission. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the acceptance of $10 in donations to the Foxborough Historical Commission to be used for the restoration of the Civil War soldier statue, and thank those who have donated.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. This also is the Foxborough Historical Commission. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the acceptance of $1,192 by the Historical Commission to be used for the restoration of the Civil War soldier, and thank all those who have donated.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. The next is the meeting minutes. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the meeting minutes of October 24, 2014, as written or as amended.
Second.
Just a quick change on page 2 of the October 21st minutes. The 7 members that were on that Child Sexual Abuse Awareness Committee. Mark Sullivan is not a member on the bottom. I think I thanked him, but his name should stay on there. But Bob Correa, we call him a member at large. He's the chairman, should be added to that. And then Bill Dudley, representing the religious institution. That's the only comments I had, corrections.
So how do you want to recognize Mark?
I think I thanked him for his work, setting up the committee.
So move them down from the list.
Yeah, yep. Please.
All those in favor? Okay. The next is the meeting minutes for October 28th. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the meeting minutes of October 28th, 2014, as written or as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Okay, the next is a request from Dimitri's Red Snapper, D&N Corporation, requesting permission to open early on football game days in 2015. So I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the request for early Sunday openings for Dimitri's Red Snapper for Patriots 1 p.m. home games. Huh?
This was last year.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah. Oh, and also they're asking for holiday openings on Easter, Mother's Day, and Father's Day. So I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the request for early Sunday openings for Dimitri's Red Snapper for Patriots 1 p.m. home games in Easter, April 5th, Mother's Day, May 10th, Father's Day, June 21st, in 2015. I guess they just wanted to get ahead.
Ginny, are they requesting 11 a.m.?
11 a.m.
Okay.
I'll
Right.
second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This next item, I just wanted to mention, we have a request for New Year's Eve extended hours. Just wanted to remind all the businesses out there, if they are going to request extended hours on New Year's Eve, our last meeting before the 31st is next Tuesday. So, to please make sure your requests come in for action next week. Thanks, Ginny.
Okay, this is for Dimitri's Red Snapper, also D&N Corporation. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the request by Dimitri's Red Snapper for extended hours of operation on New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2014, for a 2 a.m. closing.
I just want to let the board know that we did approve this type of extended hours last year, but with no alcohol service past 12:30, the usual time.
Okay, with that, I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next is the list of licenses. These are the licenses that we have the information for. So are we approving these right, we have to vote to approve these right now? Okay, do I have to read the categories?
Yes.
Okay. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the following licenses for effective January 1st, 2015, and expiring December 31st, 2015. There are 26 common victualers licenses, non-alcohol restaurants, 26 common victualers licenses for all alcohol licensed restaurants, 3 common victualers licenses for wine and malt licensed restaurants, 3 inn-holders licenses for all alcohol, 23 restaurants, 7-day all alcohol licenses, 3 restaurant, 7-day wine and malt licenses, 2 club licenses, all alcohol, 1 service club license, all alcohol, 4 package stores, all alcohol licenses, 5 package store wine and malt licenses, 36 7-day entertainment licenses, 18 Sunday entertainment licenses from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, 8 automatic amusement device licensed establishments, 1 exhibition, show, or amusement license, movie theater, 4 Class 1 auto licenses, 11 Class 2 auto licenses, 1 Class 3 auto license, and 7 taxi cab licenses. These are the establishments that the paperwork has been received and been processed by Deb, and there are a few more that,
5.
there are 5 that will probably be taking up the next meeting.
Just the forgotten paperwork.
Okay.
Fusion, I don't have any.
Yeah.
He's out of the country, but his attorney assured me I'd have it by Thursday morning.
Okay, so this is what we have now.
All right, I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So
Okay.
these are all ready for us to sign,
They're in the office on the desk.
about 2
There's-
feet worth of papers for us to sign.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
Okay, and the last one is a common victualer's license for Foxborough Sports Center. This application expires December 31st, 2014. It allows Foxborough Sports Center to sell food. It replaces the former licensee who no longer runs the food concessions, and Foxborough Sports Center has applied for a license for 2015. So I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the common victualer's license application for Foxborough Sports Center to expire on December 31st, 2014.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. That's it.
All right.
Just a quick request from the board. Under the information, there was a letter from National Grid talking about the vegetation management activities. Before your time, when we had all those power outages, we talked about the Union Loop and tree clearing from ground to sky. And I'd like to have them back in here, a representative from National Grid, just to give us an update on the Union Loop. And then basically the tree maintenance in town and their vendors and how they're working with our DPW. Just before there's an issue, I'd rather have a
I
discussion.
know that they made a lot of progress on the Union Loop this past summer.
Yeah, it'd be great to have an update and see where
Update,
we are with
okay.
that.
And Bill, just looking at the information in there, I was just wondering if that goes, like, for information purposes to the Conservation Commission?
I sent it
because
to them
You
already,
did,
yeah.
okay, thank you. They use herbicides. Great, well, I think we're all set.
Just,
Oh.
Madam Chairman, the members of the board, we have a ministerial act of you just to sign a agreement, which we merged a DPW agreement. So we have there was a number of memorandums of understanding that were done. Everything's been approved. There's no change to the contract. It's just, we merged all the contract into one contract. So we just need the board to just re-sign that. So there's no act, no vote to take it, just to sign it.
So these are past already approved contracts
Correct.
that Labor Council and the union agreed to. So the union members have signed and
So
we just
it's an
need the
updated
board to
agreement.
sign.
That's all.
We're engaging, we're starting out in DPW collective bargaining this week, and we were dealing with 4 sets of memorandum of agreements in a very old contract, so they agreed to the changes so we could start the next round of collective bargaining with one document.
Nice clean document.
Great,
And
thank you.
you're requiring our signature tonight? Is that what you're asking?
Do you have it?
Yeah, they're here,
right
in the
here.
folder.
It's here.
We have 2
Okay.
copies there, so we're gonna give the union one, and we'll keep one.
And I just have one more question. Under information, we have a copy of the letter that Mr. Keegan
Bill?
sent to David
This end
Moore.
of the table wants to read
Regard
it.
the,
Can we read it first and do it next
Oh,
week?
sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, by all means, yeah,
There's no
there's no
hurry.
problem, yeah.
Yeah.
There weren't any changes to it, it was just strictly.
Yeah, it's
standard,
better
yeah.
just give it a
Do you want
scan.
us
Yeah,
to
that's fine.
forward you the document
Could you?
electronically?
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
that would be
Yeah, that's fine,
Okay.
no problem.
and the letter that you sent to David Moeller of Mass DOT?
Yes.
In regard to the questions that we had?
Yes.
Have you gotten any
I
response?
have not gotten any response at all, and bear in mind that I was away starting, I sent that letter on Tuesday, I believe, and I was away the rest of the week, so I'm just catching up, the last 2 days, so I'm gonna make a call over there tomorrow to see what the status of that is.
Yeah, just to let you know, the town of Walpole is also sending him questions, because they had questions at their meeting also.
Okay.
So,
Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
All those in favor?
aye.
Good night, everyone.
Right.